Hello, in this video we will look at the oxytocin. So we will focus on the oxytocin to understand what is the process of oxytocin. So let's begin to understand the oxytocin. So the oxytocin is the bonding hormone also which stimulate in long-term stimulation of reward through dopamine and to create passionate love and attachment with partner, children, and religious god or religious abiotic factors. And oxytocin can be stimulation of vasodilation and lactation of milk also, as well as the parturition also involve for production of oxytocin for instant bonding before birth with baby and after the birth also labor pain decrease oxytocin. So in this way the oxytocin is very important hormone which that is released from the posterior pituitary gland which that is released the neurohypophysis release. So the parturition also involved for production of oxytocin for instant bonding before birth with baby. That is why the labor pain decrease the oxytocin, and during the parturition the oxytocin will increase will lead to pre-partnership with the baby with mother. So the first stimulation which that is created from the higher brain cortex, the cortex of brain, the cerebrum, which that is the two hemisphere of the cerebrum, which that is contain left and right hemisphere. So the higher brain cortex will stimulate through to stimulate the limbic system for hunger and on the other hand the visualization. So this is the limbic system, thalamus, hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and the cerebrum and brain stem. Brain stem contain upper part is the midbrain contain pons and medulla. Medulla is the basically a run toward the spinal cord. So anyhow, here I am drawing the simple diagram of the brain for understanding well. So this is the eye which that is basically used for the visualization, the see of something. So the female appearance, male appearance, and an abiotic factor and the friendship and God love, which that is all thing will stimulate the our higher brain cortex if we will enjoy this activity. So in this way the eyes is the first stimulus will trigger the basically eyes is the receptor will stimulate and hearing also which stimulate the higher brain cortex. Occipital lobe release dopamine neurotransmitter in the case of the pleasure. So the create excitatory nerve stimulation to feel extreme pleasure. So in this way, how its extreme pleasure will be occur? Before the production of oxytocin, the dopamine will produce. This dopamine is very important for the increase the pleasure activity. So in this way, here is the hypothalamus, and this is the pituitary gland contain neurohypophysis and adenohypophysis. So the pituitary gland. So adenohypophysis is not involving for the production of oxytocin, but the neurohypophysis will produce oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. But we will just look at the oxytocin only. So when oxytocin will produce after the long-term production of dopamine, the oxytocin will attachment and basically is the partnership. So when go into the blood circulatory system, it will target to the different vasoconstriction as well as vasodilation, increase the heartbeat as well as on the other hand. Here is the adrenergic nerve, which that stimulate the basically the cortex, which that will release the cortisol hormone. So this is the stress hormone. So for understanding, the cortisol will suppress the dopamine. So in this way, when cortisol will be increased, it means the dopamine will be inhibit. So the parasympathetic nervous system will inhibit while the sympathetic nervous system will stimulate, will lead to increase the heartbeat. While the dopamine, which that is create the pleasure, while the cortisol will lead to stress and anxiety. So in the case of the course of the dopamine production will lead to increase the cortisol as a destructive hormone due to the sympathetic nervous system. But after this, the dopamine when increase will lead to trigger the love more, addiction, reward, passion, and constriction. But this love, addiction, reward, passion, constriction will be decreased when it means the constriction will decrease. When the constriction will be decreased and the passion will increase due to the triggering of the hypothalamus to release oxytocin more. So when oxytocin will release more, it will be commitment mechanism. This commitment will lead to create the partnership and the understanding. So here you can see this is the job, success, winner person and chatting with a good manner in the mobile or something with a platform of something for chatting, messaging and talking, eating, smoking, which that will lead to increase the when incline will lead to increase the happiness due to the production of dopamine, while when this all thing will be decreased, for example jobless, unsuccessful, loser and the hopelessness and a lonely person, and on the other hand the quit addiction and quit smoking will decline. This all thing will lead to trigger the cortisol. When cortisol will trigger will lead to stress and anxiety, but it is the basically limited, not unlimited. So in this way, here is the dopamine will release with the passage of time will increase the oxytocin. Oxytocin when increase will trigger the cortisol hormone. This cortisol hormone basically, cortisol hormone inhibition, not trigger, but cortisol hormone inhibition will lead to bonding, and this bonding will create the positive feedback of the oxytocin production for increase the passion and increase the partnership, increase the attachment. So I hope you make sense about this mechanism. Basically, let's begin to understand about the love. So between the female and male, the love will be created due to the first is the serotonin and dopamine as a pleasure hormone will increase, will lead to the longer time of the production of the secretion of serotonin, and dopamine will lead to production of oxytocin. This will lead to basically is the dopamine through sound, vision, appearance, and feeling will lead to increase the oxytocin. And oxytocin basically is the dopamine serotonin will trigger the oxytocin will become oxytocin plus oxytocin through both partner will lead to pair bonding. And this pair bonding will long term, and that is why some birds and some animals, also the human, which that is involving the production of oxytocin for the pair bonding throughout the life. So that is why a positive feedback through oxytocin release, it is also known as the care hormone. Why? Let's begin to understand. For example, this is after the production after the delivery of baby, that will be sound of crying and weeping will lead to positive feedback loop to the higher brain cortex of the mother. Stimulation will lead to increase the prolactin hormone, and in this way the positive feedback mechanism will trigger the mammary gland to ejection of milk through a mammary lobule will be constrict, and in this way the vasoconstriction and vasodilation will lead to ejection of milk for the care of the baby and the suckling. And in this way the stimulation of the mammary gland will lead to lactation of milk, and in this way the baby can feed it. And after this the care and feeding will lead to pair bonding, and the production of oxytocin will more in the female, in the mother and the baby. So both is going to positive feedback of the via care, and in this way the positive feedback in baby will lead to relaxation for production of oxytocin, and this oxytocin will lead to attachment with the female, with the mother, any mother. It can be a self mother or other. When will care, it will the attachment, and after the again hungry to again stimulation will lead to weeping and crying, which that will lead to positive feedback. So that is why the positive feedback through oxytocin release, and in this way this will lead to attachment through baby with the mother is possible due to the oxytocin. So anyhow, I hope you make sense about this oxytocin hormone. So let's begin to understand a little bit. Oxytocin is a commitment hormone. Trust, stimulation after long-term stimulation of dopamine to adaptation to normalize the dopamine secretion to stimulate the commitment neurotransmitter for long-term relationship helping sporting emotional partnership is known as the biological pair bonding between friends and partners also. So that is why the oxytocin is basically the mammal character of the mammals and bird, which that we release oxytocin for the several purpose, which that is I had discussed a little bit about oxytocin. So I hope you make sense about this. Next video we will also learn about the other endocrine system. So please make sure to subscribe, like and share, and uh, and give the suggestion for another